At only 20 years of age, Schumann had created a new type of composition for solo piano, the character cycle. Papillon was the first of this kind of composition. Some of Schumann's greatest and most imaginative music for solo piano took the form of the character cycle. In Kinderscenen and Carnaval, Schumann gave specific titles to the individual pieces within the character cycle, and in Carnaval, Schumann not only gave titles to many pieces, but also gave names to the pieces. Some were names of actual people, such as Clara Wieck, Paganini, and Chopin. With these musical portraits, Schumann became the first composer in history to portray contemporary composer-performers in their own musical style. In Schumann's portrait of Chopin, we hear one of the most beautiful bel canto-style melodies Schumann ever composed. Amazingly, Schumann captures the unmistakable Chopin style without the slightest suggestion of imitation. In the middle of a lively valse allemande, Schumann suddenly introduces Paganini, whose unbelievable virtuosity is suggested by the rapid bow strokes and string crossing translated into piano configurations. At the end of Paganini, Schumann's imagination leaps into the future. We hear the first piano chord in history to be suggested by the effect of sympathetic vibration. The phantom dominant seventh chord returns us to the valse allemande. The Sphinxes, musical pictograms, are another incredibly imaginative stroke of genius. With these strange musical symbols in the score, Schumann became the first composer in history to reveal the magical process of composition. The Sphinxes show the source codes of Carnaval. Schumann uses two musical codes throughout Carnaval. The first code is A, E flat, C, B, and Schumann varies the note order freely. This code is used in the first half of Carnaval. The second code is A flat, C, B. In German, these musical notes spell Asch, which just happens to be the name of the hometown of Ernestine von Fricken, Schumann's fiancée at that time. We hear the first code at the very beginning of Pierrot and also at the beginning of Arlequin. These are clowns from the street theater known as the commedia dell'arte, and they are the comic entertainment at this carnival. In the valse noble, we hear the pitches in a new order, A, E flat, B, C. Following the noble waltz, we find the first musical portraits of the completely imaginary characters Eusebius and Florestan. With his characteristic ironic charm, Schumann introduced Eusebius and Florestan in his diary as two of my best friends, although I have never seen them before. Eusebius is the dreamer, Schumann's lyrical and poetic persona. Here, Schumann takes poetic license with the first code, using the pitches completely out of order. Florestan is Schumann's dramatic and passionate persona. We hear the first code immediately. I am made up of Florestan and Eusebius. You've got to take them both or not at all. Dual personalities, seemingly opposite. But notice that within the dreamy Eusebius, there is great passion. And within the passionate Florestan, we find a sensitive and poetic soul who finds himself suddenly dreaming of butterflies? This music is the first quotation in the solo piano literature. The quote is from Schumann's own Papillon, where it appears as the first piece. But in Carnaval, the quote, just like a real butterfly, has been transformed. In this carnival of the imagination, there are no artistic boundaries. Instead of two completely separate piano pieces, Papillon and Carnaval, we almost seem to be reading a different chapter of the same novel. Schumann introduces the second part of Carnaval using the second code in the piece he called dancing letters. We hear the second code at the very beginning of the character portrait of the woman to whom Schumann was secretly engaged. Ernestine von Fricken, from the town of Asch, appears as Estrella. The second code also begins the very first phrase of Chiarina, Schumann's musical portrait of the woman he would soon fall in love with and eventually marry. In this piece, Schumann portrays the young, precocious, and serious Clara Wieck. Clara, who was an emerging virtuosa, was in her mid-teens at this point. Shortly after Carnaval was completed, Robert Schumann and Clara Wieck would declare their mutual love. From this point, their lives would be changed, for better or worse, forever.